Greetings everyone and welcome to the channel. I am your gracious host Adeptus Artorum, and today we'll be taking an in-depth delve into the corrupted Chaos Dreadnoughts known simply as Hellbrutes. Now, before I get into this video, I would like to briefly apologise for my hiatus. I've had a lot going on in my life recently that has unfortunately left me unable to produce videos regularly. With that being said though, I will now endeavour to continue to provide videos for you guys and hopefully satiate your hunger for the lore, stories and factions of the grimdark universe that is Warhammer 40K. With that being said, I believe I have rambled on enough and we shall get to the topic at hand. So, Hellbrutes are quite simply put a variant of the Chaos Dreadnought. This is a Space Marine dreadnought warped by the corrupting powers of Chaos. These now warped and malformed Space Marine dreadnoughts were once the pride of their respective Astartes chapters, housing one of their greatest heroes crippled in combat to a life-threatening extent. The Battle Brother's body will be repaired and interred into the armoured cyberganic sarcophagus, outfitted with extensive life support systems and a huge array of heavy weapons, so that he can further serve the Emperor even in his mortally wounded state. For Loyalists, dreadnoughts represent honour, valour and wisdom. You have to understand that Space Marines encased within a dreadnought are often thousands of Terran years old, and as a result of their extensive age, many dreadnoughts are not only called upon by their battle brothers for support in combat, but also as advisors in matters of governance pertaining to their respective chapter. Now, Chaos Dreadnoughts, while essentially the same, that being the fact that they are essentially also large Space Marine battlesuits encasing an Astartes housed within a sarcophagus, they are of course warped entities, becoming essentially a frenzied psychopath with the armaments of a small battle tank. Now, I just want to make one thing clear. Though a Hellbrute and a Chaos Dreadnought are essentially the exact same thing, the Hellbrute is more of a variant of the latter, and there is a few subtle differences between the two. The most simple way for me to explain this would simply be that Chaos Dreadnoughts have not yet undergone the full metamorphosis, the full horrific mutational process that essentially makes them a Hellbrute. Like their Loyalist counterparts, Chaos Dreadnoughts encase the mortally wounded yet feared heretic Astartes of a renegade or traitor legion warband. As before mentioned, they are encased within a cybernetic sarcophagus inside a large and formidable combat walker that contains multiple life support systems. The encased inhabitant can then control the walker using neural impulses. Now, unlike the Loyalist dreadnoughts that serve the Loyalist Astartes chapters, Chaos Dreadnoughts do not consider their interment as an honour, but rather a morbid destiny to be avoided at all costs. This is simply because being trapped within the sarcophagus of a dreadnought that has been suffused with the power of the warp eventually drives the Chaos Space Marine within completely insane, and transforms the resulting dreadnought into an unstoppable, bloodthirsty tool of destruction, carnage and death. And so we get to those dreadnoughts corrupted and mutated beyond reproach, the Hellbrutes. Now, a Hellbrute is, as we've discussed thus far, a variant of the Chaos Dreadnought, a perverse mockery of their Loyalist Space Marine counterparts. Each Hellbrute is an absolutely frenzied psychopath holding a living heretic Astartes within the plated sarcophagus upon its chest. A Chaos Space Marine interred within a Hellbrute has been driven over the edge of madness twice over by the never-ending cycle of battle that defines their miserable existence. Now, The critically injured heretic Astartes interred within a Hellbrute is bound into the before-mentioned amniotic sarcophagus at the very heart of the combat walker. The heretic Astartes is connected to his respective walker by cybernetic implants within the nervous system and a mind impulse unit connected directly to the controls of the brutal war machine. Now, understandably, Chaos Astartes absolutely abhor the thought that they could one day end up leading such a miserable life, locked away in a dark, isolated, and frankly imprisoning cybernetic coffin. A place in which they can no longer witness and fully take in, so to speak, the fullness of glorious battle in the name of their dark gods with their own two eyes, nor feel the recoil of their bolter grasped within their own hands. For a Chaos Space Marine, it would be favoured to essentially die in a bloody slaughter and achieve their final release into the chaotic tempest of the warp than to spend an eternity locked in a cold and disjunct adamantium casing. As a result of this, most Hellbrutes are utterly demented psychopaths. Even before the warp inevitably merges the metal of their despised tomb with what is left of the Astartes within, a creeping yet constant desperation paired with the insanity and the insatiable rage eats away at them over the long and dreary millennia to pass them by. Now, when Loyalist dreadnoughts are not in combat, they are housed in highly honoured sepulchres that are treated as if holy shrines. The Chapter Tech Marines tend to their charges with the utmost care, painstakingly applying sacred oils and ointments while chanting holy litanies of preservation. To one of these mighty warriors, their loyalty and valour, the fallen heroes are allowed to rest the centuries away, sleeping until the need arises to call them to war once again in the name of the mighty Imperium of Man. Hellbrutes, on the other hand, when not in combat, have a far less appealing fate. The amniotic sarcophagus housing the heretic pilot is disconnected from the walker before being dragged from the grasp of its armoured casing to lie dormant and seething in the foul darkness. I might add that on top of the cybernetic coffin being removed and essentially being tossed into the darkness to just essentially seethe, the Hellbrute itself is chained like a wild beast to ensure that no slag nor trace of the pilot is left inside the walker, for fear that some semblance of the pilot's soul within the machine and the residue may send it into an insane fit of rage. Now, as a Chaos Warfleet descends upon its enemies, Hellbrute's weapons are prepared and loaded. Its power scourges and hammer-like fists are besmeared with fresh blood, and its sarcophagus is reinstalled, ready for the war machine to unleash pure carnage and death upon the fleet's foes, upon which time the likelihood is that the Hellbrute will unleash its fury on both friend and foe alike. Now, going back quickly to the actual sarcophagus housing the heretic Astartes inside the Hellbrute, I just want to make it clear that unlike the armoured shrines around which Loyalist dreadnoughts are constructed, Hellbrute sarcophagi are an utterly horrifying place to find yourself trapped inside. In fact, the vast majority are claustrophobic boxes of decaying and rusting iron, dreary and featureless if not for the blood-stained nests of cables and wires that pack them to the absolute brim. Away from the aesthetic of the sarcophagus itself, what goes on within is what one could only possibly describe as absolutely horrific. In fact, personally, I don't think that horrific describes it quite adequately. Especially those Hellbrutes exposed to the abhorrent mutating powers of the Immaterium for a large amount of time. Essentially, the Astartes left within are not much more than husks, masses of mottled flesh and dappled folds that consume their screaming implanted pilot with apparent rejoice. Jagged spined and fanged pseudopods gnaw deeply into the new pilot as fat, blackened, greasy worms burrow through muscle cartilage and bone to inevitably bond them with the Hellbrute's vile innards. From the moment this takes place, the nervous system of the interred pilot is entwined with the artificial nerve bundles of the Hellbrute itself. The seemingly unstoppable strength that pulses through its muscles, the thunderous beating of its reactor heart, the cold steel plating of its armoured shell become part and parcel of the pilot forevermore. As by now I am sure that you have realised, the process of implantation is brutal and highly traumatic for those that undergo the process. In fact, as you can imagine, it takes a heavy toll, leaving the implanted pilot trapped in an unending psychological war that they can never stop fighting. You have to imagine the fact that never again will they experience the simple sensations of smell, taste, nor touch. But even worse, never again will they have the opportunity to strive for glory in the sight of the chaos gods of which they crave to a fanatical degree. The most horrific part of this entire ordeal is that it is a real possibility for any heretic Astartes within a warband. In fact, the unfortunate truth is that any Chaos Space Marine can end his days within a Hellbrute's sarcophagus. The reason for internment can vary massively, but some Marines fail a task appointed to them but have the gall to survive. Some threaten their respective master's power and so they must be removed from the equation. Others are simply unfortunate enough to be injured that badly that they are unable to fight back when the Warpsmiths begin their post-battle harvest. In fact, many implanted pilots go mad within literal days, even hours after, their minds broken until little remains of their former selves. I'm now going to briefly discuss the specific formations that Hellbrutes are known to be deployed in and the armaments that they have been known to be deployed equipped with. So, firstly, let's discuss the actual formations that Hellbrutes are known to be effectively let loose in. Though I should mention the grand majority of Chaos Space Marine warbands will simply unleash a Hellbrute on its own, some warbands are known to unleash them upon their foes in packs to utilise them in a more specialised battlefield role. There are 3 formations of note, though of course there could be more that I am missing. I am of course not infallible, but this is just a brief overview of the ones that I have become aware of throughout my extensive research. If you know any more that I may have missed from any source material, be sure to leave a comment, because I honestly enjoy and love to discuss these things with my subscribers. So, the first of these formations is called a Mayhem pack. Effectively, what this comes down to is when forces of chaos battle alongside one another, they tend to pool their forces together in order to cause the most carnage, destruction, and subsequent damage to the enemy possible. Hellbrute Mayhem packs are a prime example of this tactic, an absolutely devastating concentration of heavily armed fury that is harrowing to behold, to say the absolute least. The pack is launched into the field of battle using teleportation technology, materialising in the middle of the enemy with little to no warning. Before they are deployed, the Hellbrutes that make up a Mayhem pack are tormented into unfathomable states of madness. They'll be tortured, they'll be goaded, until the Mayhem pack members' insanity and rage towers even above the normal state of madness for a Hellbrute. Of course, the sudden appearance of these insane, murderous demon engines spreads utter attrition amongst the enemy ranks. The worst outcome of this tactic can provide an unrivaled distraction until the point that the Hellbrutes are overrun and destroyed, while the best case scenario is of course the homicidal war machines tearing out the very heart of the enemy, leaving the enemy army reeling in a state of panic with no command structure to hand down orders to or to organise their next respective move. Now, the next formation I personally find rather interesting. The formation consists of only one Hellbrute surrounded by an insane cohort of chanting cultists. This is called a Hellcult, and if you haven't guessed it from the name of this formation, this is essentially an amassment of cultists that worship the demon engine as a divine being, essentially a living idol of the Chaos gods. The Hellbrute itself shows very little to no attention to the frenzied cultists surrounding it, and if it was to turn its attention to them, it's more than likely that it would slaughter a cultist or two along its path to bloody slaughter. You would think that the possibility of being slaughtered by a horrendous war machine would deter the cultists, but to the contrary, the cultists believe the risks to be more than worthwhile. The combination of vast numbers and the hellish combat walker usually provides sufficient forces to break the enemy combat lines. And even if the cultists are slaughtered by their divine idol, the ensuing bloodshed is considered just another tribute to the dark gods. So all in all, not the best outcome for the cultists, in my personal opinion. Now, the last of these deployment formations that I'm going to discuss in this video will be the aptly named Hellfist murder packs. Now, the reason why I say this pack is aptly named is because, in my honest opinion, this is by far one of the most devastational formations of the Hellbrutes to walk the battlefield. The Hellfist murder packs are essentially a concentration of multiple Traitor Legions Hellbrutes formed into a single pack. That's right, multiple of these devastational war machines from separate Traitor Legions united and formed into a single pack. Now, in some strange cases within these packs, now this is a point I find extremely interesting, a strange phenomenon is known to occur. Essentially, the Hellbrutes will rally around a particular Hellbrute alpha. These Hellbrutes are usually machines that contain the remains of a once great Chaos champion. These Hellbrute alphas often retain some semblance of a memory pertaining to their once large amount of power and authority, long-forgotten dreams of glory in the eyes of the dark gods that rise to the surface when surrounded by hordes of their own kind. Even with the ensuing insanity of these machines, such a Hellbrute is easily able to assert dominance over his fellow demon engines. Other Hellbrutes in the pack are just happy, if you could call it that, to be able to once again follow rudimentary commands once more. At certain times, these Hellbrutes may even behave in a somewhat coherent fashion, even displaying the ability to follow simple orders relayed via their new alpha. Though of course, if the alpha is to fall in battle, the Hellbrutes under his command will once again fall into madness, continuing the murderous rampage known to plague their kind. Though their rage is now amplified tenfold as the shackles of their newfound master shatter once more. Now, as far as armaments go, I'm just going to quickly and simply list a few that Hellbrutes are known to be equipped with. I'm not going to go into details regarding the weapons and their functions, as honestly I see myself getting carried away with this video and it could essentially become endless, and I am sure to make a video in the future discussing the specifics of most of these armaments in the future. So, a Hellbrute as standard is usually armed with a multi-melter and a Hellbrute power fist, yet in many cases certain armaments are known to be replaced with the corresponding weapons. Multi-melters are known to be replaced by an additional power fist, a twin-linked heavy bolter, a Reaper autocannon, a plasma cannon, or a twin-linked las cannon. Similarly, the power fist is known to be replaced by a thunderhammer, a power scourge, or a missile launcher armed with frag missiles and crack missiles. I feel I should also mention the fact that power fists upon a dreadnought can also incorporate either a combi bolter or a heavy flamer. That is incorporate, so be part of the actual fist itself. Now, I just want to briefly mention that Hellbrutes hail from many different warbands and of course worship their respective deity. As such, the warband to which the Hellbrute owes its allegiance will decorate the beast's armoured casing to the specific tastes of that respective legion or warband. The easiest example I find of this is of course Hellbrutes under the influence of Nurgle will be a rotting, bloated hulk of decaying metal, whereas say a Hellbrute of Khorne will be a blood-soaked crimson shrine to war and battle itself. Hellbrutes are blood-curdling, mechanised monstrosities, vile constructions of warp-wrought metal and bulging flesh. They're essentially bipedal, armoured war machines bearing a large similarity to the dreadnoughts of the Imperium's Adeptus Astartes. In fact, the fact stands that the oldest among them were once the venerated ancients of the original Space Marine legions, though now this, I fear, is where the similarities end. Commanders of Chaos Astartes warbands have been known to let Hellbrutes loose on their foes since their inception, almost as though they were heavily armoured Chaos spawn, relying upon the brutal machines of war to cause terror, destruction and death in the name of their dark gods. And for those unfortunate individuals that have felt the indiscriminate power of these mechanised monstrosities, the before mentioned atrocities become an all too real reality. In conclusion, a Hellbrute is a once proud Chaos Space Marine reduced to an imprisoned husk of meat, stuffed inside a cold metal coffin, filled to the brim with wires and cables, turned to a point of absolute insanity, doomed to live a life of rage and confinement as the claustrophobia deepens to its absolute limit, tortured by the thought of freedom that they once possessed and the eternal isolation and torment that they now suffer, slowly degenerating into a raving maniac, their mental state leaving them with nothing but rage as they maim, murder and destroy. Now, as always, before I end this video, I would like to leave you guys with a quote from Dolgoth the Rancid, a Chaos champion of the Death Guard. And I think that this sums up the torturous existence of a Hellbrute incredibly well. They are mighty warriors, true, but also cursed beyond imagining. To be trapped in a rotting box, no arms, no legs, nothing but darkness and Photor forever and ever until death comes to claim you at last. No wonder the poor bastards eventually go mad. Give me the most painful death imaginable over such a fate. Now, this has been a relatively basic delve into the Chaos Helbrutes. Now, I decided to make this video at the request of one of my subscribers. I really appreciate your opinions and your suggestions, and if you do suggest something, rest assured it is likely to be included into future content. So please guys, do drop me a comment and I will consider your subject for future videos. I appreciate all the thumbs up and all the subscriptions, all the views I have had so far, and that I hopefully will get in the future. So if you guys do enjoy my content, I urge you to hit that subscribe button below to stay up to date with all my content in the future. With that guys, I thank you for watching. I have been your gracious host as always, Adeptus Artorum, and I will see you in the next video.